The video you're about to watch was recorded a little less than a year ago. I wanted to get my thoughts out on sports gambling, my opinions on it, my relationships with it, my experiences with it, not as a bettor, but as a podcast host. I didn't post it right away. I meant to, and I never got to it. But in the last couple weeks, a massive betting scandal has hit the NBA. One is also brewing in the UFC, and many of my favorite podcasts have reminded me about what I had in the vault. I know Served covered the topic, which will continue to be a very, very important topic in the overall sports landscape. Hey everyone, Gill Gross here, and I want to talk about sports betting advertising. More specifically, my experience with it, why I initially took money to run sports betting ads on my show, on my podcast, and then later turned it down, cut it off short. I accepted a 7-month partnership to promote a sports betting website. It was longer and more lucrative than any sponsorship offer I had ever received. I said yes, but I cut it off after 3 months. 3 out of the 7, I cut it off. Now, first of all, before I get any further, the situation that I'm in matters. It would be really disingenuous if I didn't start by saying that I wouldn't be here talking about this right now if I needed that money to pay my rent. I mean, plain and simple, I say this because that's where a lot of content creators are. That, considering how much money Monday Match Analysis makes, my show makes, that's where I would be if I didn't have supplemental income coming from elsewhere. I would need that money to pay my bills. And I wouldn't be liberated to make the choice that I made. If you don't start there, you're being disingenuous. That said, even larger sports media entities are surviving off of this, off of sports betting ad revenue. This is a pretty tough time in media. There are layoffs everywhere. There are failing media entities or media entities failing all over the place. It's been a dark time in media. And within that dark time, the legalization of sports betting in the US and perhaps elsewhere, but I'll just speak for the US, has been one of the few bright spots for many of these media organizations, specifically in sports, because there has been no sector that has been more aggressive in their advertising since the legalization than these large sports books that are competing for the business that is the sports viewing audience. They have offered more money, and they have been more prolific as advertisers in the sports sector than any other industry. Without a doubt, there are sports media entities that are existing today, that are producing content today, that otherwise would not exist if not for the safety net, or the buoy, if you will, that has been sports betting ad revenue. That is very, very clear. So I was presented an offer, which, as I said, was the best offer I have ever gotten as far as partners for my show, which is always what you want. And there's programmatic ad revenue from podcasts, and there is YouTube AdSense revenue from the advertisements that play automatically on YouTube. But from a monetization standpoint, it is far more efficient, and you get a whole lot further when you have outside partnerships with brands that are specific and targeted. And you get a much better ROI. Both the creator and the advertiser generally gets a much better ROI for relationships like that. Meanwhile, I have never been bothered by betting sponsorships myself. As a consumer of sports media, a pretty avid one, I have never once been bothered by it. And my exposure is huge. I listen to a lot of podcasts on the Ringer podcast network. Simmons, Russillo, I look at a media company like the one that Dan Le Batard has headed with his podcasts, Pat McAfee, Bomani Jones, Ariel Helwani, the Just Baseball Show. I watch live sports. How about the network that I do commentary for? Tennis Channel. I watch NFL Red Zone on Sunday. Commercial breaks no matter what I'm watching on any sports network. I'm getting exposed to sports betting ads all the time, nonstop, practically a bombardment. It's never really bothered me. I look at it the same as a beer commercial or a car insurance commercial. So of course I said yes. I said, why not me too? Now, was there hesitation? Was there, okay, some tennis fans don't like this? Was there a knowledge of that? Yes, there was. But between what was being offered to me, which was what I have always kind of been looking for, and the fact that personally I did not relate to sports betting advertisements being something that would upset me, right? I didn't relate to that as a consumer. I said yes. It would be a lie if I said if there were zero concerns or qualms, but it was a solid yes. Why not me too? Right? Like why am I not allowed to have the same sponsorships that I'm seeing all over the place? All of the shows that I watch and listen to, all of the sports that I watch. Why am I above this? Why am I different than ESPN or Fox Sports or CBS or any network, you name it? Yet 3 months in, I decided, no mas, done with this. And look, even though I started this by saying I didn't need the money, I still like money. So why did I do this? Well, multifaceted answer to that. The first thing is, I'll be honest, and this isn't the most heroic thing to start with, but I think for me personally, it was number one, among other reasons, but this was number one. I ended it for my viewers. I ended it in response to the backlash that I received, which I knew there would be some. I didn't think it would be as much as it ended up being. Whether it be a tweet teasing out my show, whether it be in the YouTube comments, whether it be some Reddit thread, I saw a lot of it. I got a lot of it. And look, this comes back to how I approach this entire content venture that I've been on for the last 6 years. And my approach might be different than others, but the viewers come first. And I don't know what percent of my viewers were bothered by this or turned off by this. Was it 5%, 10%, 20%? I don't actually know. But my perspective is, if it's something that's totally in my control, whatever percent, it's not worth it to me. It's not worth it to me to alienate some of my audience for sponsorship money if I can control it. Because I owe everything to my audience. I mean, I know that sounds really corny, but I always say this, like, it really is true, because when I continued doing the show in college, when I got to Syracuse University and I continued doing the show, I would not have continued doing YouTube if the audience didn't inspire me to continue, period. So for me, if it's a matter of sacrificing audience for financial gain, it's basically never a deal that I'm going to make. That's never a trade that I am going to willingly accept, especially when it's for something that I can easily control, like whether or not I do a sponsorship. There seems to be an increased sensitivity to sports betting in the tennis world, in the tennis community. I don't know exactly why that is. I haven't figured the exact reasons out. I don't know if it has to do with the international nature of tennis. I don't know if it has to do with the individuality of it, the fact that some players have talked about abuse, which I'll get to a little bit later. I'm not sure what it is, right? Obviously, the NFL podcasts, the NBA podcasts, I don't think they deal with this as much. But I did. And that's the first reason. The second reason is more about my own convictions. Like, what do I actually think of all this? Was my conscience clear running that campaign? And the answer is no. The answer is no, not completely. Now, let me start with my overarching view on sports betting. It's not all bad. I have a high tolerance for it, as I sort of alluded to earlier, because I believe that responsible gambling is a totally okay behavior. One, I understand the appeal. I've done it. I've taken part. Not doing it currently, and not allowed to do it on tennis, and that's a rule that I follow vehemently. But I have enjoyed betting on football in the past. No doubt about it. Many of my friends partake in responsible gambling. There are many people I respect, good friends in the betting industry, good members of the media in the betting industry, people, podcasts I consume, articles that I read, tennis fans who I know, people in tennis betting media who I know and respect, and I think they're good for the game. I think there are great tennis fans who bet on tennis. And I know, some people who are completely allergic to the whole thing might not have that perspective, but it's a perspective I have, is that responsible gambling is okay. Then there is problem gambling, which it's in the word. It's a problem, right? And it's a growing problem. And it's not under control. And this is where, unfortunately, it should be better and it can be better. Because these betting companies, they have the ability to identify problem gambling. The patterns are quite clear. There are safeguards that could easily be put in place to mitigate problem gambling. Unfortunately, it would be directly against the financial interests of these sports books. So what they actually do is they cut off the winners because they don't want to deal with winners. Professional bettors, professional sports gamblers have to deal with books banning them all the time because books don't want professionals betting with them. They want, for lack of a better term, they want the degenerates. In fact, if you look at, and this is like the uncomfortable part, if you look at what percent of the actual profit is coming from people who are out of control, people who are suffering from gambling addictions, that number, I don't know what it is, and I won't speculate, but it might make you uncomfortable. It probably would. My opinion on the entire industry and the regulation of the industry is that more needs to be done to identify and mitigate and educate against problem gambling. So it should be better. It can be better. And that requires regulation. And we are in the, cigarette vending machines outside of the school era of sports betting. It's all very new. And there are a few regulations, but there are some. And by the way, my previous sponsor was an offshore, not a regulated U.S. sports book. I grew very uncomfortable with that because there are certain safeguards at the very least in place when you're looking at U.S. regulated sports books, or if you're in another country, state regulated sports books. There are certain safeguards in place that I believe do protect the consumer to a certain extent. I think it should go further, but to a certain extent that exists. My sponsor didn't fall under that. I ended up having an issue with that, and that is where morally, in terms of where my conscience lied, that's where it started to get pretty shaky for me. Quickly on athlete abuse before I finally kind of address what's next for me moving forward on this topic. Athlete abuse is how betting as a problem in tennis has mainly been presented, right? Because it is a tennis player specific problem, or at least at times it has been communicated that way. The reality is it's not really a tennis problem, right? Cyberbullying, it's not even a gambling problem. Cyberbullying, that's what this is. We're talking about mean DMs sent to individuals on social media. That's what we're talking about. Cyberbullying is out of control everywhere. Receiving mean DMs because the internet provides anonymity is a problem you have in local high schools, in politics, in music, in Hollywood, everywhere. People, public people especially, public people are getting abused online. I don't have a solution to that. I don't like it. I hate it. I hate what players have to deal with, tennis players and other athletes. Tennis players take it maybe a little more heat because it's an individual. Getting rid of betting ads is not going to fix that. It's not. Maybe these social platforms can do more to filter this stuff out and shield its users from this kind of stuff. I know the ATP has introduced some sort of AI that is supposed to help players manage this kind of thing. But the toothpaste is out of the tube in terms of people actually betting, whether there's advertising or not. That's going to happen. And what has created a proliferation of cyberbullying is not betting, it's social media. Anyway, here's what's next for me. I'm in a moratorium right now for sports betting ads. I don't know if that moratorium is permanent or if it's temporary. I'm not really sure. If temporary, I can promise this. There are certain requirements that I would have for a sports betting sponsor in order for me to enter that partnership. It will be, one, a legally regulated sports book. It will include gambling problem resources. It will be a less in-your-face campaign. And lastly, just like this last one, it will be for money that makes a difference for this show and the people who work with me on this show. So that's it. Just being open and upfront about a topic that I thought was important to address. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.